another big part of culture, and I've always said this, is your strength staff. And Jerry Schmidt is back, and hopefully he's back to stay. Schmitty was here when I was here, and I have some incredible stories, as I know you guys will. And so I'll share my story first. One of my favorite stories of Schmitty. So you guys can think for a minute on just sharing a story for these guys. So Jerry Schmidt is not the tallest guy in the world, but he certainly instills some fear. And so, we always had to weigh in. Every single week, you have your name on the chart inside the weight room, and you've got a weight next to it. And it wasn't like, I always had to be 210. I was a kind of a lighter guy when I got here. And so I needed to be not 209, not 211. I needed to be 210 on the dot. And if you're under it, you go chug shakes until you get there. If you're over it, you go throw on trash bags and you get on the Stairmaster until you hit your weight. That's just the way it was. And thankfully, I would hit it on the head most of the time. And so I didn't have to worry about anything. But one day I get in there and I'm like 205. And it was a tough workout. You guys know we were doing med balls down by the duck pond, and it was just a rough day. And so I'm like, I'm 205. I've already chugged a couple shakes. If I chug another one of these, I'm going to throw it all back up, and I'm going to be lighter than I was before. So I go up to Schmitty, and this is not a fun conversation to have with Schmitty. I go, Schmidt, I'm not going to make weight. And, of course, he looks at you like, you're the worst person in the world. And so he did. He was gracious to me. He said, all right, big dog, go eat breakfast and come back. And I'm sitting there going, I've already chugged like 5 shakes. I'm not getting one of those omelets from she just retired. What was her name that used to make all the omelets?
Oh, in Headington?
In Headington. There was a lady that made our omelets in Headington. Flo.
Yeah,
Flo. Oh, Flo made
love
me an
Flo.
omelet.
I haven't seen Flo in a minute.
Flo would make
Wait,
me
she
omelet.
retired?
I think she's retiring.
No.
Yeah, I didn't even know
that. Quick aside with Flo. I would go in there every morning, and let's say I say, Flo, I want an omelet with mushrooms, bacon, and cheese. Without fail, every time it would come out with no cheese, spinach, and ham. I mean, she never got an omelet right, but she was great.
She knew what was best for you.
She knew what was best for me. That's right. So anyways, I go, and I'm like, there's just no way. So had my tights on or whatever, and I just didn't want to let Schmidt down. So did the old stuff the apples right there into the pants. Probably had 10 apples in there. And I was trying to walk to where you couldn't really see it, but I knew he knew. He knows everything. I walked in there, I made weight, and he didn't say anything after that. So that was one of my favorite stories of Schmidt that I got to get around Schmidt one time. But any fun stories from you guys with Coach Schmidt, because they're always so great?
I've been trying to think of a good story that is good for this room, because I can't think of any PG stories.
Well, tell a time that maybe a tough workout or what. Maybe a little insight for everybody to hear on what a typical day in the summer looks like.
A typical day in the summer. Okay. So usually we'll split up the day. An hour of lifting, an hour of running, and the lifting can go either two ways. It's either you make it through or you barely make it through. And then you get to the field, time to run, and there's only one way that's going to go. So
Schmitty get pissed if you don't make your time.
He do get pissed. And if you don't make your time, he's not, because you might just barely make the time, or you might just barely not make the time, but you'll never know until after the run, when everyone's walking back to the locker room or whatever, and he's like, no, take a knee, stay. Come on, stay.
Come back at 3, big dog.
Yeah, come back at 3, big dog. and then you know you messed up. But the summers are just an experience you kind of gotta experience for yourself, because if you haven't, then you really won't know. But you have any stories about Schmitty that are PG?
Yeah, I personally don't have any stories, but one of my favorite stories is actually from Gavin Freeman told it on one of our pods. So basically, I'm not going to name names. So one of the guys ended up not making a workout. He missed the workout. And Schmitty, called him, told him to come back. Pretty much, I forgot if it was in the summer. I think it was in the summer. But he basically told the dude to come back at 6 a.m. the next day. And I think the next day was a Saturday. So basically, the player shows up at 6 a.m., starts waiting, making sure his weight's right. Reaches like 6:05, still waiting. about 6'10", he goes in the locker room, gets his phone, calls Schmitty. Schmitty doesn't answer. So long story short, Schmitty didn't show up to the workout. He kind of gave the player a taste of his own medicine. But yeah, that's one of my favorite swing stories.
I love it. I'll share one more. This is probably I'll call it G-rated. All right. So
Okay.
Schmitty, he has his rack. So every player gets assigned a rack, okay? And that's who your coach is with. I was with Scotty, all my Scotty people out there. And Scotty was pretty easy on us. Scotty, he was methodical about the way that we lifted, at least to some degree. Schmitty, hey, how many plates can you put on each side? You better get it. That's just the way it was. Well, in the old locker room, which is over in the indoor, and I don't know if y'all still go in there from time to time, probably not. But ceilings were really low, and there was rafters, and so we'd be in the middle of a workout, and he mentioned it. You'd be out running, you'd be dead, and you'd be lifting, trying to get up this weight. And if you didn't get the weight, a coach would say something to you. So there was one day I was just struggling, and we were benching, and I didn't bench all that much anyways, nor should I have, playing quarterback, but I don't even remember how much was on the bar, but I was just getting destroyed by this weight. And so Schmitty comes, Scotty's rack was on the far end this way. Schmitty's rack was on the far end that way. Schmitty walks over, and as I'm getting up and, I'm feeling sorry for myself, he just stares at me. He doesn't say anything. And then he starts looking at the ceiling. And then he stares at me again, and he looks at the ceiling. And I probably see in double vision. But like when you're driving by a big truck and they have the balls that hang from the back? He had hung a pair of those in the weight room up in the rafters. And he was looking at me, and he was looking at those, basically saying, come on, man. You don't have it. I don't have it. Yeah, this is not good. So great story by Schmitty.